All right. Welcome, Peter. Finally, we reconnect and welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
No, I'm super excited to have you because I think the audience will see you have a depth of knowledge in a number of areas. And so I'm just going to try to look pretty while you put all the intelligence out, basically, which I'll get sarcasm for saying that later. Anyway, but how about if we start with the obvious? If you could briefly introduce yourself, not about the business stuff yet, but just who is Peter? Where you're from originally, where you are now, family, things like that. That would be great.
Yeah, so in general, I was the work categories, just bring them up so they touch on what kind of things I do in general with life. That I'm a futurist, I'm a digital economist, a social impact leader, an educator. In previous incarnations, I was an American diplomat and even used to make financial models a million years ago. But I was raised in Rochester, New York, in upstate New York, and that really had a big impact on me because Rochester at the time felt like a shadow of itself. It's the city of Kodak and of Xerox and of Bausch and Lomb, and they were going through massive layoffs, massive reorganizations when I was growing up. The city's doing a lot better now than when I left there 20 years ago, but at that time, Rochester had been a place that had developed the first digital cameras, and Xerox had developed the first desktop PC and the first mouse, or at least some of the iterations of it. But they didn't commercialize these things. And they weren't the ones who made big money off these things. They were the ones who said, hey, this is a risk to our core business. This is a risk to the direction we're going. Let's keep with the traditional things that we've always been making. And and then I saw my city kind of fall apart after that because it didn't take the risk. They had the innovation, they had the creators, they had the brilliant people on their teams. They didn't take the risks to step forward. And that shaped a lot of how I viewed the world. And so that predisposed me towards innovation. And by the time I was an undergrad, I was already leading a marketing team for one of the first internet retailers. And so now a unique factor for me is that I'm moving to France. But Tunis, Tunisia has actually been the biggest part of my adult life. I've lived there twice now. It's been about 7 years in total between two different times living there and visiting a lot in between. And so maybe that's something one wouldn't expect that Tunis in North Africa is actually a really big part of my life. And I've been there now with my wife and my five kids and our five dogs and four cats and even three fish. So it's been a crazy house, but we're moving in a process of now changing homes to France. But Tunis has been a big part for me.
Well, let me
And
stop you there for a
that's
second,
been
if I may,
yeah.
because that's fantastic. I had three boys, four dogs, and a bird myself at one point, and so 96-year-old aunt I mentioned to you, she used to tell me, enjoy the messes, the rushing, the broken things, the deadlines, the food, the this and that, being thrown around or whatever, because when it's gone, you're going to miss it.
I
So
can imagine that.
enjoy it all. Now, with respect to that, then, your kids and growing up in Rochester, and I did love that movie, by the way. It was a Kodak movie about they had the last film that had to be rushed up to Rochester to develop by
Okay.
Kodak. And
Mhm.
it was a great film. I can't remember the name of it, Kodachrome or something like that. But what were you like as a kid then, or a teenager? Were you a reader or an organizer? Did you take things apart? Did you play music? What were you like?
So I was definitely a reader, complete history nerd who was really fascinated with how the world works. Yeah, I was active as the president of Model United Nations in high school and already getting a bit towards the futurist type things. We created the Future Security Council, where we created like a Security Council scenario 30 years in the future, which I guess we've already passed that point by now. And I was active with student government. I was active in sports. Like I played lacrosse and cross country. I did cross
Oh.
country skiing as well and ran track at one point. But I've got to admit, my sports roles were a bit more social, more of being part of a team, part of the community, than really caring as much about one specific sport.
Well, that's great. I actually love that because I do a lot of sports analogies about how it does imitate, as they say, life very much.
Hmm.
Whether you're a single tennis player or playing on a team or stuff like that. So that kind of makes sense. And then you started talking a little bit before about your journeys. I mean, education wise, John Hopkins, SAIS or SAS, however you want to tell, incredible school, but that was between DC and Bologna. And then you did a myriad
Yes.
of other executive educations, which I loved at Quantic and Hertie schools. And that was DC and Berlin. You might say you're a global citizen already at that point, not to mention you were taking Spanish and Arabic in different times also. Were you just enjoying that, or what were you envisioning at the time?
Well, I was envisioning a foundation that would be a very international life, and where innovation and risk and new experiences would always be a large component of it, and where it'd be in, whether in the public sector or in the private sector, in some way in service towards the public good. And the languages kind of came about as part of it, of like, okay, it's a function of, okay, now I live in North Africa. I need to speak Arabic better. Now I'm focused on Latin America. Let's work on my Spanish. Let's get my Portuguese better, which I used to speak much better than I can now. And I was a US diplomat in both Munich and Berlin. My wife is German, so of course, speak German as well at this stage. But it really came less from a targeted plan about learning the languages and more of, okay, where am I going in life? What are the places I'm going to be living? And oh, okay, I'll be there. So functionally, things will work much better if I learn that language as well.
So let's see. So entonces te hablas español, ¿no?
Sí, hablo español.
Et vous parlez français aussi ou non maintenant?
Oui, je parle français. Je dois parler meilleur, mais je peux pas.
What's my bon accent? I don't really speak German, but I do know Achtung bitte. And stuff like that. And Salam Alechem is about all I know, and that
Yeah,
maybe a little bit of Hebrew thrown in
exactly.
or whatever too. So it's really fascinating though that you say that, because what's that expression? When in Rome, do as the Romans. But I think people really, not I think I know, people really appreciate, even if you just try to speak their
Mhm.
language, and out of respect and of everything, and with everything going on technology wise in translating, I think is great. And we'll get to tech in a minute, but learning a language teaches you way more than just having something translated by a computer or something, right?
Definitely. Definitely. Of learning the culture, of learning the way people do things, the way they think about things, or even the structure of the language. And based on that structure, seeing how they approach problems or issues or how the culture is structured, it makes a much bigger impact than just using Google Translate.
And it's so much more fun.
Yeah,
And not to mention French and
definitely.
Spanish are way more romantic than English and German as well. Um, our firm Fifth Element, we founded it on the premise that now is more accepted, still some ways to go, that business and all organizations actually can do way better when they're doing good at the same time. You began actually, correct me if I'm wrong, in like sales, business development modes. Then you went on to SAP, market intel and analysis. Um, and then you went into the US Department of State. Share with us, if you could, some of the diverse experiences that you had there and how it did shape where you were going or your future.
Certainly. Well, those early jobs in sales and business development, those really were key people skills that one learns in that you don't normally connect sales and marketing to diplomacy, but really it is. Because when you're doing diplomacy, you're representing a country and conveying the viewpoints and the needs and convincing people of the interests of a particular country. Whereas in sales and business development, you're understanding that more at the individual level, who your customer is, what the product they need is. And it's really the same skill set of listening, of asking the right questions, of conveying the recommendation to somebody. And so it wasn't so far different in that sense. S&P's market intelligence and analysis, okay, that was a little bit more different because that was more hardcore financial modeling
Right.
and closer to computer coding. But even there, we worked as a team. We're working with many other people at any given time. But this is something where those sales jobs and the time I worked at Standard& and Poor's, the time I worked at Citigroup as well, these were all things that were really interesting jobs. I was surrounded by really smart, bright people, but there wasn't that same sense of purpose as there was when I went into government or in the role I had in between those, where I was at the African Development Bank in Tunis.
Hmm.
And of course, that's a public sector focused organization looking out for the public good, but still related to the finance side. It's obviously a triple A rated institution. So that was that bridge between finance and the public sector that I was on. And then I saw an opportunity to make a bigger impact as a diplomat. So I went and did that for some time.
Yeah, you got a whole lot of different experiences at the State Department that I think are fascinating. Did you, not to go a different direction, but were you married with your kids? When were you married with your kids? At what point?
So I was Our first child was born while I was in training for the State Department. And it had been a 2 year long application process between going through all the interviews and assessments and security clearance and background checks. And so when I was offered the chance to join that training, and it was before our first child was about to be born, or very shortly before, I still jumped on it, even though it was going to be quite a balancing act. So thank you, Tanya, my wife, for
Yeah.
making that happen. And but that was something where, yeah, the kids then have grown up moving around all over. And between my career and also my wife's career, also being very international, for them it's just been normal to be on the move. And it's even strange to them that the last 4.5 years we've been in the same country. And now we're leaving Tunisia after 4.5 years there. That's yeah, for my oldest kids, they were in Tunisia once before, then in Egypt, then in Germany, then the US briefly, then El Salvador, then back to Tunisia. So
Well, I think it's
it's
it's spectacular, and I think it really does tell the tale. Obviously, not everybody has the opportunity to get that type of experience, but it really does. And this is an oversimplification too. That you know, if you meet someone in person, or you see somebody doing something, or just open your mind to different things out there. What an education that can be for your own advancement, and creating a better world, if you will.
definitely agreed.
Along the way, you made other decisions too. You founded the Ayadi Foundation, and you were, as you put it, a leading driver in the BMW Herbert Foundation, Herbert Quant. So you've been involved in innovation and entrepreneurship, economic and social impact, talent and leadership. You don't fool around. You get the gambit. And describe the importance of how you can achieve even a greater economic impact. And I apply that even not just for profit, what do I call them? Social profits, because I don't like the term nonprofit, social profits, and any organization, to ensure the sustainable, or if you will, enduring social and environmental impact.
Well, a big part of it is having a mission, having an inspiring mission and vision statement. And when one is creating a an organization that has a social goal or social impact, like the IID Foundation has, that or the large organizations that are already established, like the BMW Foundation, Herbert Quant, there's a clear vision to make an impact. And with IADI, our goal was, or has been, and continues to be, to educate people about new technologies and emerging technologies, and find ways to use them towards public policy, especially towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we've been focused around food production and food waste, parts of SDG 12. With the our BMW Foundation, Herbert Quant's Responsible Leaders Network, that's a network that's more than 2,400 leaders globally. That the big goal of the network is to put the right people together and connect the right people so they can make an impact together. I think very much similar to what the Fifth Element does with the monthly meetups. And there's a lot of parallels with the BMW Foundation and Fifth Element in that regard. And that vision, that the inspiration makes a huge impact. I taught a class this spring, 2 sessions of a class in Madagascar for government leaders in Madagascar. And one of the big parts of that was teaching about the vision and the mission statements. Because a lot of these leaders were just saying, hey, we take whatever the politicians say and we've got to do that. And they hadn't really thought about, yeah, but can we have a vision for our department? Maybe there's something that really says this is what we do. Even if the orders from the top and politics change, this is our reason why our office is here. This is why our bureau exists. And so that really lit a lot of them on fire. Like, yeah, let's come up with vision statements. Let's get mission statements for what our organization does. And I love it when I can see students, whether they're adult learners, like these senior executives in government, or whether they're university students or even young kids, when I can see a light go off and really help someone get to a new idea and new concept.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I once did an interview with an NHL executive. Doesn't matter what team it is right now, and
Hmm.
and he said, every year we have the goal of winning the championship. That is our goal. That is our purpose, whatnot. But we're not naive. It's hard to win the championship in a league. That is the goal. Our mandate of our purpose is to have winning seasons every year, and they have
Hmm.
definition of what that looks like. So, and it made them play much better. And when I say play, I mean not just the players, but it made everybody in the organization play better. because they know who they have to support and how they have to do things, whether it's the trainer or the secretary in the office of the arena.
Right.
There's such an amazing thing that clarity does to allow you to do something like that. And they didn't consider it a losing season if they didn't win the championship. You can still win. You're not, when two teams play and one lose, doesn't make the team a loser. It means they lost that game. That type of mentality. Can you comment on that?
I think that's really powerful of separating the action from the person or the entity. Like, okay, I did that thing, it didn't work. I might still be good, but that thing wasn't the right idea, or that thing wasn't the right. Maybe they had the wrong strategy for that hockey game, and they're still good players. Obviously, they're at that level, they must be.
Right.
But they can be like, okay, so that's not the right strategy. Next time we'll try a different strategy. And I think if someone gets so attached to their identity to what went wrong and saying, oh, we were wrong, we were bad, instead of that was the wrong strategy, let's try different next time, it's hard to come back and hard to be ready the next time because mentally it takes longer to re-prepare again.
Yeah, and whether you're a kid whose parent or teacher said you messed up versus, well, let's look at what happened, and but you're still a great person, and let's go to the next step. The return on investment of, let's say, firing a person or benching a person or just being negative to a person, is terrible versus the return on investment of, like you just said, okay, what do we do to change this? We have a winning formula here. We're going to do changes. How can we move along? And then it turns into a culture of loyalty and trust and belief and belonging
Mhm.
and everything. So right on for what you said there. What would you say one or two of your most special accomplishments and experiences you've had where, for example, it went great, and another one where you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, but it still went great, if you will.
What I would say one would be the creation of our track supply chain tool. This was when I first left the State Department, creating agricultural supply chain tracking tool. It's blockchain based and designing this as a tool that was super simple, easy to use. So these farmers who are growing coffee in El Salvador, who might have very limited education, could still use this tool that in the background was connected to the blockchain and all these other high-tech tools. What was great is that we made it, but what was actually not so great about it is that was really early in my entrepreneurial journey, and I wasn't really interacting with the end user and thinking about who's actually going to pay for this as much. I was like, okay, we're going to make a product. There's a need for this. Farmers are doing badly. All the money is going upstream, downstream in the supply chain. Farmers are getting almost nothing of the coffee production value. We're going to help the farmers. And we had a great idea how we thought of how to build the product, and we made something simple and easy to use that yes, farmers could use, and they understood how to use it, and we showed it to them. But they're like, but why? We don't want this. We don't need this. Had I interacted with the customer far sooner, I might have built something different. I might have said, yeah, let's target a different part of the supply chain. Or I might have seen, oh, I want to help the farmers, but the obvious maybe the small coffee farmer has no money. And yes, I want to help them, but maybe I need to get a grant to help them. Maybe I need grant funding to develop this project instead of trying to sell it directly to them. And so what was good is that we made the tool, we made the thing we wanted to make, but what was great is the learning experience and the lessons I could take from that to share with my students, the lessons I could use in future projects I built as well. And so that's where we get to the great part of it. And really that the really great, I've really enjoyed being a teacher, being an educator. And it's over the last 4 years, I've had about 900 students that I've taught at the university level, teaching either entrepreneurship and business planning or entrepreneurial culture. I've also led scores of workshops about decentralized autonomous organizations, blockchain for supply chains, general tools about how to use blockchain for business use cases. I created an executive education program about blockchain design thinking with the University in El Salvador. And I think this is something that the teaching and the education side, this is something that really enlivens me. One, because I get inspired by my students. And two, when I teach something, it's like Goethe said that when you like teaching is learning twice. And so I really have to sharpen my thoughts and make sure I understand the concept really well before I can teach it. Because of course, inevitably somebody will have a good question, and if I haven't thought through it well enough or don't know the material well enough, then I won't have the right answer or a solid answer. So it really causes me to clarify my own learning as well when I'm teaching.
I love that. Teaching is, how did you put it? Is you say that again? Teaching is
Teaching is learning twice.
learning
So it
twice.
actually comes from a German author, Goethe, who said that initially, around somewhere in the, I believe, 19th century.
No, I love it. A long time ago, I do a lot of executive search, talent development and stuff. A lot of time ago, we had placed this individual at a company, and the family was so appreciative because it was a great opportunity. Da, da, da. And he said, it finally gives me the opportunity to go home and be excited to tell my kids and my spouse what happened. We really are
Great.
doing something great business wise, and they were doing something great impact wise. Um, and I remember that because you don't, sometimes we forget the impact of you just put someone takes a new job or puts them in a new opportunity and they go home and two things can happen. Oh, I'm so tired. I hate my job. I don't know why we're doing it. Da, da, da. And the kids hear it. Or you go home and say, hey guys, let's over dinner. I want to tell you what happened. And we're going to a
Mhm.
food bank later. Or we just made something that's going to impact people's lives and whatnot. And the kids hear that. So you got
Mhm.
two choices of what, and
Right.
to your point about teaching, there's different ways of teaching also, and that's one impact that happens. It happens on sports teams with people coaching kids in sports. 99.9% aren't making pro. They're learning something else
Right.
when they're doing that. And so
Right.
it's kind of up to, not to be cute here, but leaders who care to share
Mhm.
this stuff and want this stuff. Um, you must be super proud of your five kids, and not to mention your wife also, who are probably seeing all this and they're taking it all in the way they do too.
Mhm. Yeah. Though when people ask my kids what it is I do, they have a hard time answering. They can tell things I do or where I've went, but a general one sentence question, they have a hard time answering that.
Well, one time my son was asked when he was in grade 1, "Was your dad do?" He talks on the telephone. So that was one of the answers, but I'm sure it goes deeper than that, for you.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the world right now. They said the fourth industrial revolution is about tech, AI obviously playing a huge part in that. But the fifth everybody talks about is humanity. That's what they're talking about. And we do all our work is based on talent and impact. It's a general question, but I'm going to ask anyways. How do you see technology, including AI, affecting humanity as we are evolving at record supersonic speed right now?
Well, first off, I see the most important factor for everyone to learn is going to be a phrase I've learned from you in a previous conversation, power skills. Obviously, many people say soft skills. I love the phrase you've coined of power skills. 'Cause I think that encapsulates it so much more. And I think, yeah, we'll all need to learn how to use the basics of these technologies. And I think these new tech tools, they'll enable us to do so much more than we could before, whether this is scientists and engineers coming up with the newest advancements, or me just writing my reports or doing my analysis or, writing an article faster because I've got structures that help me put my information together in a clearer way quicker. And so my concern though is that those is in two areas. One is that those who are left behind because they don't learn these tech skills, don't learn this tech knowledge, and the haves and the have-nots could become even bigger than we have today of those people who have abilities and not. I mean, yes, it creates massive opportunities that somebody without many resources could start using ChatGPT and if they've got a basic smartphone, they could create a small business and do something out of it. But yeah, the person who's coming with no assets, no background already probably doesn't have the power skills to know how to do that. And so it's really this two-tiered area of one, making sure this technology is available to everybody and people know how to use it and have access to it. But as well, this difference of the power skills I see as something really big. I think back to when I lived in El Salvador, and in El Salvador, there's 4 or 5 elite high schools. They're basically the international high schools and elementary schools. And the elite of the country would send their kids there. And then those kids would often go to boarding schools and university in the US or in Canada afterwards. And they would come back and they'd continue to run the country. There's elections, it's a full democracy, but Yeah, the people who were already the elite, they were being taught the power skills and the kind of education they had. Whereas the people who went to the normal public schools were really just learning to take orders and do as they were told and memorize things. And that was, they maybe learned mathematics well, maybe learned how to read well, but they didn't learn the power skills that the elite of the country were learning. And so there's nothing forcing that there's not a change of the elite. And there's of course elections and the parliament is, fairly voted on. But still, the same people who are from that elite keep attracting the votes even from the masses because they have the power skills. They know how to address the people. They know how to talk to people. They know how to solve problems. And so even without the technology aspect, this divide of power skills is still an important thing. And technology can just add fuel to the fire of making that divide between the rich and the poor bigger.
Yeah, a great point. And it leads me just to one more question here, because in LA we always say that you want to leave people wanting more so you can do a sequel. So we may have to do a sequel on this, but it brings up something. We work a lot in what we call untapped talent, and untapped talent are refugees, veterans, incarcerated, becoming formerly incarcerated, people without college degrees, et cetera, and working with a lot of leaders in companies that are believing that, number one, we can upskill some of our employees that have been loyal to us and work with us and not lay them off because they don't know something, but give them the
Yes,
opportunity to grow.
that's
And
great.
imagine going home to the family then and saying, look what they let me do at my company. That person will be
Mhm.
loyal till the end of time. And
Right.
the kids will say, wow, that's pretty cool. But then also attracting the best talent, because the best talent's interested in who lets their voices be heard, who has programs like Nonflict, which is a favorite program that is about how to look at conflict differently, that I love. They look at those type of things. I'm asked about it all the time. Will, if there is a conflict, how is my voice going to be heard? Am I going to be able to work on major projects? Et cetera, et cetera. Am I going to have good opportunity there to both, as we said before, make money and make a difference at the same time? So, not to just make a statement here, but just a general overview of what I'm saying right now about, related to what you said, is I think we have an opportunity and a responsibility to bring people into the mix by engaging them to have different opportunities to learn different skill sets, everybody has value. And that in effect does benefit the whole community, the whole league. We talked about sports before. I call Earth a league, and we're all different teams in the league. And if we win a championship and the league sucks, your championship's not worth anything, basically.
Okay.
And I think it's the same thing. So,
Mhm.
any comment on that speech I just made?
Yeah. Well, I think the programs like Nonflict, like innovation, like mental health and well-being programs, spaces for employees to develop their own creativity and innovation. These are the things that are going to attract the best talent and retain them, right? As you said, that person who instead of being laid off got retrained and becoming loyal to the company for life, yeah, they're going to be retained. And maybe they learned that new skill from the company and they have an opportunity to go somewhere else and they still stay because they're loyal for that company creating
Right.
the opportunity for them. And so I simply think that these programs like Nonflict and Equal Opportunity and mental health, etc., like these programs that take care of the people and really respect the workers and respect those employees and give them the space to learn and grow, I think that's something that it just simply is going to keep them there. And those companies that have a sense of purpose and give their employees a sense that they take care of them, they're going to attract the best talent. They might be working in a completely boring industry to many people, but they're going to get the best workers coming there because people know like I can grow, I can advance, I'm going to be taken care of there, and and they'll feel even better if there's actually a social mission to what the company does, right?
And not to mention, imagine what the impact is on, you said mental health, on healthcare costs in general, on crime, on all sorts of other things that happen. So it's not rocket science. It's actually a mindset to get it done, I think. So last question on this part. But I think it was about the year 2021. A client told me about the pandemic year 2020. He said, it was the year that flew by slowly. I thought, what a great line. And it still feels like it was yesterday and years ago at
Yeah,
the same time. Um,
right.
with all that said, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Well, this has been a year of amazing amount of change. My family is moving countries and continents. We had, unfortunately, both my father and my father-in-law pass away within 4 months of each other. And so what I'm really grateful for is my wife, my children, and networks of close friends who've been there and been able to help create both assistance in this time of change and also that sense of stability, despite all the changes that are taking place, that there's still this global community that we're part of and that's there taking care of us and we take care of each other. And so that's a great constant. And and that same community of friends, that same network of organizations I'm part of, whether it's others I met through Fifth Element Network, or whether it's BMW Responsible Leaders Network or YPO, these networks of people and of friends, these are what give me hope because I just meet so many inspiring people who are doing amazing things in this world. And despite being so busy doing their own amazing things, are still there to help someone out when they need it. And that's just so inspiring as well.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm grateful for you being a leader who cares, actually.
Thank you.
And a good friend. And I admire, all the stuff you do, but most of all, I admire, a great spouse and 5 kids. That's the
Thank
legacy
you.
right there for sure.
Thank
So,
you.
and that's what makes me hopeful too. You got, 5 great kids that are going to take the mantle, take the torch and do some great things.
Mhm.
So thanks for
Thank you.
participating on this and thanks for sharing what you do.
It's been a pleasure, Mark. I really enjoy every conversation you do. I always enjoy.
You're too kind, but flattery will get you everywhere.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.